question. What would you define as the game changer in India-China ties? Answer: resolution of the border dispute, of course. Whenever Indian and Chinese leaders meet, the media in India tends to devote breathless hours speculating on the possible contours of a border settlement. The speculation carries on even though many acknowledge that it is unreal. Why on earth would China want to give up what it sees as leverage against India? But here's a counter question. If China weren't interested, why would it devote a senior official every year solely to discuss a border resolution? If India weren't convinced, why would it send a top bureaucrat every year, year after year, to participate? The participants of such a meeting, we can tell you, are called special representatives. That's their designation. They meet alternately in India and China. There have been 20 such meetings so far. No breakthrough has come about, but they haven't stopped trying. There's some cynicism that is set in, of course. Indian diplomats say that China is not interested in a settlement, but Beijing persists with the dialogue, probably because it loses nothing. It's another platform to keep India engaged. So if the buzz is about a reset in India-China relations, it must be with the caveat that a border resolution may not be on the cards, not immediately at least. So what then can one expect? China pundits in India are clear that any high-level meeting would primarily focus on bringing down the political temperature. This has been evident over the last couple of months. The first step was to stop the slanging matches between the two capitals, Beijing and New Delhi. There could also be some relief for India on the line of actual control, the LAC. Chinese pinpricks or transgressions could come down. India could even push for demarcation of the LAC. Such demarcation will acknowledge the perception of both the sides. It could be a good confidence-building measure for talks in the future. Other agreements may be harder to achieve. For instance, India's entry to the nuclear suppliers group, the NSG. China, remember, has been the chief roadblock. It is unlikely to relent, nor is it likely to show flexibility on Masood Azhar, the Jaish-e-Mohammed chief, the man who India once designated as a terrorist by the United Nations. China may continue to block India's moves in the UN in that regard too. The list of what are uphill tasks does not end there. China cannot help India lower its $50 billion bilateral trade deficit. If it gives India those concessions, it will face similar demands from other countries. In that sense, the recent visit of a high-level commerce delegation from China keeps India engaged. And keeping India engaged is very important for China. What's in it for China, you would ask? A lot. First of all, Beijing is wary of New Delhi's growing proximity with Washington. It sees the quadrilateral, the strategic quadrilateral comprising India, the US, Japan and Australia as a major challenge. Point number two. At a time when China is under pressure from the US on trade, Beijing would want the India relationship to remain stable. Third, China is obviously eyeing the growing Indian consumer market, an ideal destination for its goods and products. And finally, the Belt and Road Initiative. Remember, this is the Chinese president's pet project and India has refused to join it. Beijing would very much want New Delhi to change its mind. Now, if you asked a traditional expert or a foreign policy observer on how many of these challenges are surmountable, they may not sound very optimistic. We've spoken to some of them, so we can tell you. They would say that a partnership between India and China is a far-fetched idea. It probably is. But just for a moment, consider the possibility. What would it mean for the world if these two powerhouses joined hands? We'll tell you. India and China are the most populous countries in the world. Their combined population would exceed 3 billion people. Most of these people are young. In other words, valuable human resource, drivers of economy. India and China are also among the fastest growing countries in the world. Earlier this year, the International Monetary Fund said that India is projected to grow at 7.4%, while China will grow at 6.8%. Both countries together form the world's biggest market. There are numerous opportunities that both sides are yet to explore. There is immense trade potential in sectors like agriculture, food processing, construction, infrastructure, pharmaceuticals, and information technology. By removing market barriers, both India and China can improve economic relations. But political exigencies have acted as roadblocks. Strong partnership on both sides could prove to be a much-needed cure for bilateral ties. And the timing is right. China is engaged in a trade war with the United States. The West is voicing India's concerns over the growing weight of debt on Belt and Road countries like Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and other nations in this region. So China is basically running out of allies, and this is Beijing's chance to win a new friend. We'd say by showing flexibility on some issues, it should tone down its resistance for once on India's membership of the Nuclear Supplies Group. Beijing can also solve New Delhi's concerns over the Belt and Road Initiative by bringing Afghanistan into this mix. And this would force China to shift the BRI route to accommodate Kabul, which is going to take away Beijing's focus from projects in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. For the moment, there are no clear assurances. This is just speculation. But what we can tell you for sure is that Defence Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will travel to China in a week's time, and she will be attending the SCO's annual Defence Ministerial meeting in Beijing. This is another opportunity for India and China to put their relationship back on track. But one item on the SCO meeting agenda is generating more interest than the others, and we're talking about the proposal to hold a joint counter-terrorism military exercise in Russia. This drill aims to bring together the militaries of SCO members to improve coordination in anti-terrorism operations. Sounds perfectly all right, doesn't it? But do you know what it means? It means Indian soldiers holding military drills with forces from Pakistan and China. That's right, implausible, not impossible. Anti-terror cooperation is expected to be the top focus of the Defence Ministerial meeting this year. But considering Pakistan's track record and continuous support to terror groups on its soil, this exercise will be the next level of irony. India and Pakistan are also part of the SCO's regional anti-terrorism structure. The role of this body is to mainly facilitate the sharing of counter-terrorism intelligence, but Islamabad till date refuses to even consider India's evidence on terrorists like Masood Azhar and Hafiz Saeed, which is why the SCO is yet to prove its worth outside the circle of its founding members. If it wants to emerge as a powerful platform for Eurasia, it needs to pay heed to India's demands for better cooperation against terrorism. Last year, remember, India's External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj raised the issue of terror before the members of the SCO, and in its role as a full member now, India has an opportunity to reset the agenda to press its concerns on terror emanating from the neighborhood. With the rise of Islamic State and radicalism in Afghanistan, India's push for better counter-terrorism initiatives at the SCO would enable it to position itself as a viable alternative to NATO. Remember, this is a developing story, and you'll get the very latest here on WION First. Watch this space.